The beginning of the shows are usually just dancing as the music fades away. I might adjust that fade. I feel like we lost the song too quickly. I feel like I want more song. And I don't hear you. Is this my fault? Have I done this?
I did it because my dogs were playing, so I muted myself.
I'm just glad it wasn't my fault for once. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that you definitely should make the music a little longer if you're intending for a dance break.
I agree. I think you're completely right. Yeah, that's totally correct. Welcome everybody to the very first episode. Oh, I had to reset stuff. So let's find out whether or not certain things were done before or after the reset. Welcome to the first episode of HOSTility. Tonight's topic, sex coach versus purity culture. And I am joined by one of my favorite people in the entire goddamn world. Her name is Alyssa Ljubicich, and she is a sex coach. Did I say it right this time? I said it right first time. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's muted again. What's just happened? I don't understand. When you talk, nothing is coming in on my side. I cannot. Maybe hit refresh. Let's see if that fixes it. I think I heard you as you first came in with your AirPods, and now I don't hear you again because it disconnected off. Maybe refresh one more time with the AirPods off. Let's see what happens. This is horrible. I'm so excited to introduce everyone to Alyssa. Nope. Wait, Say something? Yes.
Hello?
There you are. Yeah. Hooray. We're back. We're back. I did like the AirPods more, but we're back. At least we're on.
I know. I don't know why that didn't work. That was really weird. They're usually pretty faithful, but...
Yeah, it worked and then it didn't. This is the first episode. So here's the beautiful thing about the first episode is we're allowed to have problems.
Yeah. Do you want me to try the AirPods again?
I think so. I really prefer them. I
prefer them too.
I'm like everyone knows how precious I am about my audio quality.
Okay. I'm going to turn off. Let me refresh. Hold on.
Right.
Okay.
I think we're good. I do hear you.
Okay. I turned the Bluetooth off of everything else, so we should be okay now.
No interference or anything. Well, welcome everyone. What we are doing tonight is the beginning of a new series of call-in shows where I know myself and other people who host on the line. We've got a lot of awesome friends, and most of you don't know them, even though these are people doing incredible work and they're incredible people. And so I wanted to start the very first episode with one of my favorite incredible people who I think is doing incredible work, not even meaning to, I think, overlap with like my world of like, you think a lot of people think of me as just like a fucking absolutely insufferable atheist, and yet we talk so much about purity culture. And I feel like you provide so much information that is just being yourself doesn't even not everyone's even going to realize like, oh, this is that good information. So Alyssa, before we get started, why don't you tell people about yourself as they decide if they want to call in with a question about getting over certain programming from purity culture, how to get past certain thoughts, that thing that they're curious about. You are more than welcome when you call in to give a totally anonymous name to the person, the screener. The screener's just going to ask you your name and your pronouns and what part of the country or world you're calling from. You can lie about all of that. The phone number and a web link is in the description. There are multiple ways to call in. Alyssa, please share who you are and what you do and where you come from and all that.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for all the nice things you said. You know, I'm a fan. I am a fangirl of Mr. Atheist. I'm a fangirl of Jimmy Snow as a human being. And so this is really exciting for me. But I come from actually a Roman Catholic upbringing. So it was not a very, it wasn't very, very strict, but there's definitely elements of that purity culture that I've had to sort of unravel in my own time. But my whole journey into being a sex coach was like really kind of serendipitous. I don't actually know if I've told you how I got here, like how this all happened. And my biggest, I guess, before I tell that story, the biggest sort of reason for any sort of notoriety that I might have is because I was on season 4 of The Circle, which is on Netflix, and it's a game show, and they really wanted me to say vagina as much as I could, and boy did I.
It's true. It's true.
Boy did I.
Episode 1, you whipped out the pillow that I think you have ready next to you, right? That's right.
Always.
The vulva pillow is here.
A vulva pillow. She's always here. She's always at my beck and call. She's reliable, more than most.
Yeah.
So the way that I got into the sex coaching space was I'd moved to LA originally because I wanted to learn how to do special effects makeup for horror movies. That was my goal. And all of that is done in labs in Los Angeles. And so that was my goal when I moved there March of 2020. And so we know what happened shortly after that.
Right.
And everything shut down. Yeah. Everything shut down. And so I just took like whatever job I could so that I was not unemployed forever. And I ended up getting a job with a sex coach, and like her whole outlook changed my whole life. And I thought I was just going to be doing like admin work with her and call it a day. But I learned so much that I knew that this was like my passion and what I wanted to do moving forward. And so my goal has really been to try and normalize as much of the sex education as I could so that things feel less uncomfortable to talk about. And that's really been my whole goal so far. I'm still in my certification process to be certified by like the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. But technically I am a sex coach right now as well, but not a sex certified yet. I think that's my whole journey.
Do you have
all of this in a brief way?
What is your, I'm sure one will come to mind. I could be wrong, but is there like a specific, just to give people a tease of what we could talk about tonight, if you had to, just a specific bit of coaching that super commonly pops up that people, and we're going to keep using puns like pops up all night. How could we not? Here we are. That's got to be what we,
oh God.
What emerges the most when you're with sex coaching?
Most of what people ask me is some variety of like, am I normal? And I would say 99.9% of the times the answer is yes, you are.
Yeah.
But the question that I get the most is related to desire discrepancy. So one person in a relationship wanting to have more sex than the other. And if that's normal, how to resolve that, if you should resolve that, and who sort of takes the responsibility in resolving that, and how much sex is normal, like how much should you be having? And that question's always kind of funny because like it's not like doing your taxes where there's like a day where you have to get it all done and you have to get all of these forms in. It's not like boxes that you have to check. It's just the answer is literally as much as you would like. It could be every single day, or you can have periods of time where it is every single day, and then, a year later it's once every 3 months. And if that's what makes you happy and that's what feels good to you, all of those things are fine. I
have been spending the last 45 seconds trying to figure out how to turn boxes that you need to check into a joke, but I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to just let it go. Some people are mentioning that there's some buffering happening with the stream. What I'm going to try real quick, because I don't know why it's happening, but we do try again. Anytime there's a new show, we try and make things work. I'm going to just briefly stop the stream. We've got the settings set in a way that I can just resume. Start back up. All right. We've reinitiated, and we'll see if this works better. It was a very brief pause, literally an on and off again situation. I hope this works. I hope people, if you need to, maybe refresh on your end. And also, look, I am very aware right now, the topic we are talking about, this is probably the most intimidating topic for people to call in about. And that is reflected by our current empty queue of calls. We're going to keep having our discussion here about purity culture and stuff, but I really, really would like to see the calls come in. And so I know we're not going to judge you if you chuckle. You'll probably make me chuckle too. I am an immature child when it comes to all of these things, but there's good information out there, and there's a lot of stuff that people, I guess, Alyssa, that's a good question, is specifically people who are trying to deconstruct from religion. What extra value do you think they could get out of something like consulting with a sex coach or a therapist about sex and sexuality?
Well, there's a lot of morality that's tied into sexuality as a result of a religious upbringing or some sort of like governing body that would imply that morality. But there is nothing morally there's nothing morally good or bad to having any sort of sex or experiencing any sort of pleasure. And in fact, there's actually a lot of ways that things that are pleasurable to you that have nothing to do with sex light up the same parts of your brain. And so the biggest difference is obviously like this physiological response, like all of the sort of like things happening in the general area and whatnot. Yeah. But all it is a pathway to a pleasurable experience. An important thing for all of us to experience in a way that is safe and that is accepted. And a large portion of IT culture does is remove that safety, and it makes it feel like it's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. And there is somebody who's going to approve or just, and that's just not the case. So it's really deconstructing that sort of like shame that you've built in this, like, it takes like layers of deconstructing to really get to what the heart of what being in purity culture does to a person. And I think like a lot of the times the questions that I get related to like purity culture and that sort of environment are people who are in relationships and say, we're trying to wait till marriage. That's our goal, but we've already messed up a few times. Like, what should we do? And it's one of those things where I'm sort of caught in the middle because I want to be respectful of what people believe. I want people to have the freedom to say, you know, it's part of my belief system that I'm going to wait until marriage, and that's a goal of mine. There's nothing wrong with that, but to inhibit yourself from something that's literally just a pleasurable experience for the sake of being accepted by a higher power, it doesn't really make sense. And if you feel like you're being, you know, for lack of a better word, tempted into those types of behaviors, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that you're normal. It means you're very normal, right? And you're just feeling and experiencing things that are completely normal. And I think that we also have this like weird stigma that people are having sex younger and younger. And the research shows that it's actually the opposite, that people are waiting until they are older than they have in the past. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. And Gen Z specifically is having less sex than any other generation has. Obviously, that's accounting for people who are quite young, but they are having less sex in their age groups than our generation did in our age groups.
Are there hypotheses out there as to why that's happening?
I think that it's partially because people are not really focused on their intimate relationships as much as they are focused on all of the crazy things that are happening in this world. And I think Gen Z as a whole is just a lot more tuned in to like just the state of the world. So I know
Sure.
lots of people who are Gen Z, even starting to reach our generation too, where they are like not really considering kids. Plenty of people who are done looking for a partner. They've decided they're just going to go it alone. And it's just because things have gotten so complicated and so confusing and so difficult to navigate. I think people have sort of taken that off of the table, which I don't recommend that people do, but it's been sort of a change in the tides where we are not really promoting sex culture the way that we used to, especially now when you can get, you know, canceled, so to speak, for doing something inappropriate. Like this whole Balenciaga situation is a great example. They're like one of the biggest fashion houses in the world. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
Their ad campaign?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit. Yeah, I've seen not much, but a little bit. Mostly I saw the drama between YouTubers that was happening on Twitter, so I've mostly stayed away. But my surface level understanding was that they put a kid in maybe like a bondage looking outfit, and then that there was some sort of child porn legal document in the background of a thing. That's all I've got so far. And Tucker Carlson made his Tucker face.
His Tucker face. I mean, but the good news is that, oh my God, that ignites my fight or flight a little bit. It does.
Mine too.
But people are unwilling to accept any sort of excuse from them now. They've just sort of like shut them down as a whole and decided like somebody on your team saw this and ignored it, and that's enough for them to decide that, you know, the hammer is coming down in some way.
Right. No more conversation. That's a frustrating part of a lot of things these days, where it's like, what is the goal? Now, I don't shed many tears for any multi-billion-dollar corporation, because in the first place, I'm like, you're billionaires, so I hate you. But as far as conversations go, in the first place, it's really, really frustrating modern culture how it is. We found the reason to dismiss you, and now everything's over, which sort of makes it more like you want to group people by their flaws instead of seek for a society that gets better. And so in a lot of ways, it feels like if you were ever wrong, go die with the other people who are wrong. And one day we're very excited for the society where all the people we hate have just died off. Nobody improved.
Right.
You're committed to your worst take that you ever had. I'm just glad that like all of that emerged roughly a decade after my worst takes all were. Otherwise, I'd be committed to some real rough shit from not even just my Mormon days, like my early atheist libertarian days. They weren't great.
Oh God.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it would be nice to live in a society. But again, when it comes down to it being a specific example from like a corporation, I have the hardest time boo-hooing. But when it's people, I care more. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, because an individual person can make a mistake, and that it is what it is. And there are even like areas of, it's interesting because once you get into like the coaching or sex therapist space, you're dealing with people who might have interests in things like that. Like you could potentially be treating somebody who has had thoughts about whatever. I don't want to say it and like mess with any algorithms or anything, but you understand.
We're already fucked tonight. Like, I mean,
fucked.
this is a sex related topic show. We're fucked.
Yeah.
For lack of a better phrase, we're fucked.
Yeah. I had a video on YouTube that had been up for 5 months and randomly was threatened to get taken down. So weird.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Actually, I don't mind bringing this up. This is not a sponsored episode, but as people tonight might now feel, as you hear more advice and things, you might feel braver to try things. I'm going to do a free plug of my Adam and Eve code. You can use the code SNOW at checkout, get 50% off whatever sex toys that you want from there. If you do it one item at a time, you can do it multiple times. So just a little throw out there for people who are like, and the 90-day free returns, you can try it. If it doesn't work out, you're like, oh, this was a mistake. There's no risk. Anyway, that was a good free ad. What am I doing this for free for?
But that's actually a really good, that's a good point for anybody who's unraveling any of those sort of like purity culture behaviors or beliefs, because you might just not know what you like. And you might be like a little nervous to explore. And so something like a toy, there's lots of different toys with different kinds of functions, and just like try them all.
Yeah.
Try them all.
All of them 50% off.
At once.
Actually, I think there are some exclusions which apply. I'm not finding the exclusions. I think somebody alerted me to one recently. Was it you? Somebody recently was like, so. I tried your code and it didn't work on this one. And I was like, oh, well, this is the first.
The only thing I can think of is maybe like they have like a 50 Shades of Grey line, and maybe like that might be the only thing that I can think of that they wouldn't allow that discount on.
I think it was a pretty super advanced like sex machine, something that's going to have like name brand recognition sort of stuff. And so I think it was one of those things where they're like, I was trying to get $800 off of this super machine. Maybe it was like a Sibian or something like that. I don't know. One of those like high-end, expensive, awesome things. But I think they were most delighted to tell me that because they know in my ads I often say like some exclusions apply, though I haven't found them yet. And
right.
I'm remembering who it was now, and she was like, well, now you can't say that anymore. Except I technically did not find it, nor did I confirm. So I still haven't. The ads aren't going to change. Is what I'm saying. I'm lazy and I recycle scripts. Deal with it. Snow at checkout. I'm Jimmy Snow. This is Mr. Atheist. What was my old catchphrase? Stay skeptical, my friends. I'm trying to really dive deep into this, that I just recycle material. Anyway, and then also, if you like the idea of shows like this, next week I'm going to be having on a cognitive behavioral therapy coach. It's weird because it's his organization is called Cognitive Behavioral Theater, and we're going to be basically doing therapy for everybody who watches and teach people certain cognitive behavioral therapy techniques through what is essentially going to be like an improv class, teaching people about improv and shit and therapeutic things you can do with that. So that's all coming in the coming weeks. I think we want to jump into I feel like I was gearing up for a question when I brought up the Adam and Eve stuff, and I simply do not remember what it was. So maybe we just take one of these calls and see if it all sort of comes back. Again, puns all night. It's happening. I can't do anything about it. This is how my creator made me. The irony. Let's start.
Your creator.
That's right. My parents. They raised a big old perv. Let me first update this so that they're not getting... We'll do that first. And then we'll start by talking to Peyton in Canada. Pronouns they, them. Peyton in Canada, you are on the line.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going grand. How are you?
Cool. I'm doing pretty good. It's my first time calling. Also, sorry, my headphones aren't very good audio quality, so...
I have a question. Do you live more in the easternmost part of Canada? You don't have to say specifically where, but are you like pretty to the east?
I'm near Toronto.
Which is, of course...
that's like...
Yeah, that's east, I think.
Yeah,
that's right above
not
New York.
East Coast. Like, I'm not near the ocean, but
east.
Like, I'm near Vermont and New Hampshire.
Do you want to know how I knew that? Why I suspected it?
Sure.
Because you apologized, but you said sorry instead of sorry. And that as you go further east, the further east you go in Canada,
I have a Canadian accent.
the more the sore becomes a sar. I was just talking about this last night with Shannon Q.
Sorry.
So it was a lot of sorries, not a lot of sorries. Peyton, go ahead and we have the iconic Alyssa Ljubicich, reality TV star, if you ask me.
Oh my!
And sex coach extravaganza. No, that's that's the name. That's the word you use for an event. Extraordinaire, not extravaganza.
That's
sex
the one.
coach extraordinaire. Go ahead and pose your question.
Sure. So, like context, I'm doing my PhD in counseling psych, specializing in trauma. So, I work with a lot of, I'll try to not use terms that will get us in trouble on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I work with a lot of clients who have backgrounds of various abuse histories. And, some of them are kinky. And, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. And I've seen some interesting literature. But a lot of the times, like, they are engaging in kinks that are like super in line with their trauma. And I guess I was just curious about, Alyssa, your thoughts on that. And I know there's a variety of literature on it, but I was curious your thoughts on it.
I think that's a great question. And also, congratulations on your path. I'm very excited for you. We need more people like you in this space. So I'm very excited. And I don't know you, but I'm proud of you because it's tough, especially working in the trauma space. It's really, really tough. So good on you. I'm very excited for you. And you're doing great work already. It's awesome. Excuse me, Bonnie, my little chihuahua, loves to speak up at exactly the wrong time. My thoughts are that I am kink positive through and through. I think there's a part of it that's sort of like a way to process. It's like the way that I would think of that is sort of a way to like make something that would have taken the power away from them be something that then empowers them in the process. And so I think like that's one of the really cool things about kinks is when you find someone who's willing to engage in that conversation and in that like boundary making with you, you oftentimes have a much stronger relationship, much better respect among that couple, because you want to engage in these behaviors, which requires a conversation about boundaries and a conversation about requests and things of that nature. And so I almost think that some of it is sort of like an exercise in having conversations about consent, conversations about desire, conversations about boundaries that help to like rebuild what they might have lost in the process of any trauma that they experienced. So I think as long as they're in conversations with people that can help them process and support them through exploring all of these kinks, I'm all for whatever helps them enjoy what they're doing. And it's very possible that after a period of time, they'll have sort of processed it, completed this sort of cycle of resolving what that trauma experience was like, and move on from that kink and have that not be a part of their life anymore. And that might be a way that they just process the whole experience. But overall, I don't see anything explicitly wrong with that, unless there's like an emotional response from engaging in those behaviors. Like if they're engaging in this kink and then afterwards they feel really bad about themselves, or they're feeling like they've done something wrong, then of course, then that's something different to address.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that is I think even if that happens, sometimes that could be quite useful, especially if you have like a kink affirming therapist to debrief about it with afterwards. Like, because it's a contained place, if you do get triggered, you know, you can say word, right? And that's in a lot of ways different than just getting triggered like in everyday life.
Yes, absolutely. So that's sort of like what I was saying about you're creating a safe space because you have to engage in those kinks. And so it's almost like it's creating this like bubble of security in something that might have really completely destroyed that bubble that they might have had before of feeling safe and comfortable in their body and whatever. So yeah, I think it's important that as much as people can be supportive of any kinks in any arena, but resolving and moving on from sexual assault is really an individual journey. And so if that's something that helps that trauma kind of move through their body and leave either in a way that's like peaceful or in a way that has transformed it into something that's fun and enjoyable and pleasurable, then I think, then I support them doing that.
May I ask a follow-up, if that's okay?
No. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you mentioned like about not kink shaming, or I forget what terms you use. Do you think that there's a limit to what we should accept as, appropriate kink play? Like, again, I won't use terms on here, but identity-related play, I've seen some people engage in. Some people find that at that point it's basically hate speech. So they're like, no, that's something that they're not going to affirm, or things related to like more intense DDLG sort of dynamics. What are your thoughts about that?
That's tough because...
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's an important conversation. Like, it's important. And I think about that even like, there have been a lot of stuff that in the process of my certification, you're taught that you're meant to, at least in my program, you're meant to really just kind of accept things enough to be able to maybe like figure out some pathology there and maybe like guide them to healthier practices. But it's almost like are they engaging in those activities and then walking away from it and feeling like, I don't really know if this is right? Or are they engaging in those activities and then carrying that with them outside of their kink play? Like, I think if it's really contained to whatever this kink is and they have a consenting partner and it kind of, all of those thoughts and behaviors are left at the door, then in a way, I don't want to see a problem with it, but I have a very hard time believing that most people who engage in kinks that involve, like, I think you had mentioned like gender identity or like race or anything along those lines, I have a hard time believing that those are people who don't internalize something from that. And maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. I would
but
say
so then
that
that's kind of like where's the line between where you're internalizing it about kinks that are maybe less controversial, like bondage, for example, but it's related to your own, beliefs or whatever. Like, I just find it interesting. Like, it's an interesting gray zone, and I see a lot of hate online towards various people, like, I don't know, Melanie Martinez, who is very, she shows off the fact that she's very into, like, DDLG-esque type dynamics. And people, like, they really compare it to child pornography and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I think it's going to be sort of a case-by-case basis. And I think as someone, like you as a person in your own sexuality, in your own life, you don't have to engage in any of those behaviors. You don't have to accept them personally. I think as a counselor, I think it's worth giving those people the space to explain why that's something that interests them. And it's interesting too, because there are things that people engage in like kink play that have nothing to do with any, like, it's just whatever, for lack of a less explicit term, like whatever gets their dick hard, essentially. Like, it's like, if that's what does it for you, if that's what does it for you, and you walk away from that situation knowing like that was, maybe we don't talk about that anywhere else, maybe we don't discuss that one at brunch or whatever it is, then I think like you have a good understanding of the boundary of whatever your interest is. But if it seems to be carrying through in other areas of your life, or it's even just like it's something that weighs heavily on the person, then it's worth like really unpacking. That's a tough thing though. And I'll be honest, like I struggle with that as well. Like there are people who are sex therapists or sex coaches who accept like bestiality, and I could never. Like I just I would not be,
well, at that point,
I
it's
would
a
not
consent
for that
issue,
person.
right?
But there are people who argue it isn't. And so I, that's where it is a gray area. And like that I think would mean that like you and I are just not practitioners for those people. And that's okay. There might be a practitioner who might be able to better understand what the pathology is for those types of behaviors. I would say like to open yourself up to like a myriad of possibilities, because pleasure is something that is so deeply rooted into our brain that I don't know that people always understand what gives them that feeling. And so I think it's worth having people who want to like walk through it with them.
If I might jump in,
I would say
real quick before you go in, Peyton, there's an interesting thing here, and this is where my talent as just a host comes in. I'm not I'm nowhere near as well understood in this topic as Alyssa is, but we are in a position right now where we're talking broadly as a show that is pointed towards society, but now about a topic which is different in the context of coaching and therapy. So if we just go to a different extreme, something that's a topic totally unrelated to sexuality, and we go with maybe a topic that just has to do with like physical violence in its more traditional way, we as a society aren't going to embrace a person who wants to talk about their fantasies of murdering people or whatever. However, if you take that to a therapist, the first thing the therapist is going to do is not reject that person. So even if it's something that at large needs to be rejected. So when we talk about things like where the line is, the line for somebody like Alyssa, who's a coach and for sex therapists, if a person comes in, even I think you, Alyssa, if somebody came in and started talking about bestiality, something that you can't get on board with, I don't think your first response to them as somebody who is trying to help them is going to be gag in their face and whatever else. It's going to be trying to take a coaching approach. Whereas as a society at large, as we're having this discussion, I think we're going to say, you only get to fuck humans. That's the rule. And even there, we have to contain which humans, but humans only. And so there's that's where this other complication comes in, because where the line is, I think everyone will agree, sex therapist or not, that the line is somewhere, right? You can't indulge in cannibalism kinks. I don't think there's going to be a sex therapist out there that allows you to literally eat people, maybe pretend, but not literally. I don't know what those lines are. I don't have an insight into Armie Hammer's brain, but the lines are clearly somewhere. And so it starts to get into those, like, where is it? Here's the obvious examples. And we can say everyone agrees there is a line. The nuanced discussion comes in where the line is. Yeah. And thankfully on this channel called The Line, I've just said the phrase "the line" like 92 times. Awesome. Fantastic for marketing. That was all I had to say.
I'll let you go because it seems like there's other people, I think, saying that they're waiting, but
we have full lines.
I definitely, Alyssa, I side more towards you with the being perhaps more open than my colleagues would appreciate at times.
Those people deserve a space too. So, oh no, thank you. I'm really excited for you, and I'm so happy that you exist in this space because everybody deserves guidance and support. So, thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Patron.
Bye. Good night.
I think I remembered what I was trying to say earlier and forgot to finish saying. Everyone who doesn't necessarily feel brave enough to call in, we end the show with a super chat Q&A. Any chat of $5 or more, we read out loud. That's what the final phase is. So that's an amazing way to support the show. And if you would like to see people like Alyssa in the future, if you would like to see more shows like this where we try and bring somebody on with a special expertise and just sort of say like, hey, it's going to be activists. It's going to be people that I just like. You know, I might just bring on somebody. I might even bring Alyssa back on for a different hobby we have in common. Like we'll just talk about both being, technically I only own half a Chihuahua, but you own a Chihuahua. We could just talk about Chihuahua ownerships.
I love that. I love that.
The other half is Husky. You want to talk about difficult sex conversations to have? Let's talk about how my dog is half Husky, half Chihuahua. That's rough. This one
is half Chihuahua and then a whole bunch of other things. So I have a halfie, I have a whole. There's big Chihuahua energy in here. That's why they're so loud.
Big Chihuahua energy. I have a whole. We're definitely running right at these phrasings. I like to think that our two pups are related, but they probably aren't.
I think it would be cute if they were. We can tell them that they're cousins.
You've seen Dexter, right? With his blue, one brown eye?
Yes, Dexter is so handsome.
He's the best. He's the best. All right, let's jump into the next call. And I assume that we pronounce it like the continent, but if it's actually pronounced Asia, let me know. But Asia from Connecticut, you are on the line.
Hi.
Hello. Have we gotten the name pronunciation correct?
Yep, it's pronounced Asia.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, go ahead and give Alyssa your question.
Okay. So sorry if I'm a bit nervous. This is my first time calling any of the line shows.
And you're calling the most intimidating topic there is. So I'm already so proud of you, honestly.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So my question, Alyssa, thank you. So my question, Alyssa, was along the lines of, is this normal? And so I've had a sudden loss of sex drive. And I've had it checked out. I thought it might be hypothyroidism, but I got my blood tested, and my blood test came back normal, so it wasn't that. And yeah, I'm just wondering how normal is it for sex drive to just suddenly dry up?
It's totally normal. There's a lot of things that affect your sex drive, primarily stress. And even just if, like, I know nothing about your personal life, but the world, life in general is very, very stressful right now. And so it could just be stress.
Mm-hmm.
But it also could just be that you're finding maybe pleasure in other things. It also could be that, well, let me actually ask you a question. Do you feel like there is a lack of pleasure or enjoyment in other areas of your life too, or do you feel like it's sort of like siloed to your sexuality?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
I'd say it's siloed to my sexuality.
Okay. So it could just be that that's just not a priority to you right now. And that's totally normal and totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that that should even be something that, you want to work on is if you want to work on it. Like if you want your sex life back, or if you want to maybe like engage in sexual acts with a partner, then I think then you can take steps into ways that you can reignite that for yourself. But if it doesn't bother you, it's not something that you need to survive, Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I wasn't really sexually active to begin with. I mainly just stuck with self-gratification. And yeah, I'm fine now just considering myself asexual.
Yeah, I was going to suggest you should probably check out some asexual communities. They're all over the place, Reddit stuff, and you'll find that there are people that are that exact way, where they're like, yeah, for some reason, every year that ends in a 4 or 8, my sex drive comes back, but on the other years it's gone. It's wild.
Yeah. And there are communities where you can find a lot of support about ways that you can still continue to date as a person who is asexual. Or if you don't want to date and you want to find bigger friend groups, you can do that. I'm a big homebody. If I could see 3 people the rest of my life, I probably would be fine doing that. So if that also works for you, that's also fine. So I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that it's your life, it's your sexuality. What makes you feel good and what makes you happy is what's most important. And if sex is just not that thing, that's fine. One less thing for you to think about. You can focus on some other hobbies. You can focus on the things that do give you pleasure in life. And then you might, that might change in the future, but it might not. And if it does change in the future, then great. Then you can explore that. And if you're finding that, as you said, self-gratification, so any sort of self-touch is what you are most inclined to, that in the future, if you decide that's something that you want to explore again, it might be a good time to, you can check out new toys. You can check out, there's lots of methods of like, even just things with your hands that are pretty fun. And there's lots of things that you can explore in the future if that does come back, but it's totally normal and totally fine if it never does.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Asia.
Of course.
Bye-bye. I think that was a very good call. I think that'll be a useful clip resource for other people. I think that's really good. It is interesting how many things can totally change your sex drive.
Yeah.
I would have thought nothing ever could for me, because I've just ever since around puberty, it's just been this invasive. But last year there was a period of a couple of months where it just went away, and it had to do with I was stressed about moving, and I was depressed about a breakup and certain things that had sort of like happened around that. And at first it had like sort of surged before. It was like, oh, all this stuff, better like solve my problems by, boning my way out of them. And then it as soon as the opportunity showed up, it was like, actually, no, I don't want to. It's just gone.
Do you want to know something interesting about desire and how that whole system works? There's a theory called the dual control model, and it's like one of my favorite like pieces of sex ed that I've ever learned. And basically, this theory is that there are things that are accelerators and there are things that are inhibitors, and you can be especially sensitive to the acceleration. You could be especially sensitive to those brakes, the inhibitors, and you can be on a scale for either of those things. And so if you are a person whose acceleration is like on 10 all the time, nothing can take you down from that spot.
Yeah,
that's great. There are people who sit in the middle for both. There are people whose brakes are super, super sensitive. And so any sort of stress, any sort of change in routine or overwhelm or anything along those lines will affect their ability to feel any sort of desire. And a lot of things go along with that. So for people who might be in like a partnered relationship and are looking to reignite that, a lot of the conversations that we would have would be around the context. So if you just had a child and it's an infant and they're in your house, your context of your entire life is completely different. The context in your relationship, the context in your home. Are we back? Oh, you're muted, I think.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
But suddenly I don't hear you.
Hey.
Okay, wait. Everything is awful. Why don't I hear you? I think we're live. You can hear me. I can't hear you for some reason. That doesn't make a ton of sense, but everything just sort of exploded. Now I got Bob Ross on the TV painting behind me. I don't know. So fucking, of course, on the night of a new show, the internet decides it doesn't like, because I went like totally down for a moment. I think everybody can hear you. Everybody can hear me. But what's missing is I can't hear you. And that's not useful to anybody. Let me also figure out, let me reset that. And here's what we're going to do. Audio outputs. Okay. we're going to reset again. You're going to probably have to refresh in a moment. Let's see what happens here.
Turning the stream back on. Hello, everyone. I think you can all see me. And Jimmy is working on it. His internet just randomly decided to cut out out of nowhere. It's always when you're doing something that's exciting and fun, right? I'm pulling up the YouTube chat so that I can see what's going on. What are you guys talking about? A pizza? I would love pizza. Since when do they have pizza? What are we talking about? Okay, I'm in the chat right now. Oh, you know what? You could see both of us. Okay, yeah, I'm in the chat. When do they have a pizza? Okay, so 2 vibrators go into the bar. The one says, "What's shaking?" That's cute. Skip the pizza next time. I can answer a question. I got cookies. Oh, you're moderating, duh. Yeah, I can answer questions if anyone has them.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
But I hear myself also.
Right. So I have to figure out how to stop that because I'm having to do a workaround. So the problem is that the internet crashed here, which crashed. I can't technically fix one of the core problems without, oh shit, how am I going to do it? How am I going to fix this? Without resetting the computer, which will knock the stream out. And it's like the worst thing. The worst way this could have broken, it is broken. And my whole house, everything, the TV went black. That was because it lost connection to the network that was great. Just the best. Everybody, thank you for hanging in with me. This is one of those things where it's like, we had, of course, a night where we weren't having any tech issues at all. And so something that 1000% outside of my hands to take care of course, had to happen. Let me see if I do this. Do you still hear yourself echo when you talk now?
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I guess that's how that would have happened. So I need that.
I have the YouTube like chat open on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But it's muted. So someone was saying it's echoing because I had it open, but I'm echoing on your end.
You're hearing yourself back when you talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's shit. I think we have to. Okay. All right. I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna manually hold the stream open. So. Sorry, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. Everybody who's on hold on the phone, please also stick around. I am going to just reset the computer, and I'm going to manually hold the stream open. So it's going to be a long freeze of probably like a minute or two, and then we'll get back in.
I can answer questions in the chat.
It'll take you off when. Oh yeah. You can be chilling in there while we're doing that for sure. Okay. Let's do that. All right. We'll see you all back here in just a moment, and hope that this doesn't break too much stuff. We'll find out. Ooh, unless it gave a different. I think I'm back. We're seeing if we can get Alyssa back. Make sure that is it a different link for Alyssa? This was very unfortunate. And I say that with a calm, even though anybody who knows me and my shit around production would know that I am like screaming on the inside. But let's see, is that the right one? Aha. Maybe. Connected? Aha. Okay, wait. And now I have to do some things for me to hear you, which should happen as of now. Hello?
I hear you.
And are you echoing again?
No.
The echo is gone. Okay, we're back.
We're back. There were so many questions that I literally could not answer them quick enough.
It was too many questions.
Yeah. I couldn't type them quick enough, rather.
Do you want to pick like 4 or 5 of your favorite, and then but we're going to limit to 4 or 5, because remember, people, while I love the live chat, I love all of you, we have to pay for the show. This channel is expensive to run. The call-in system's expensive to run. So we do generally reserve this for the super chat section at the end. And we do have to sort of make sure that we hold to that at the very least. Though right now, it may be interesting how we get all of that back. But we are back. Jimmy needs a new internet. That's pretty true, except for I don't have any other options where I live. And I'm on fiber optic. They just like to do hiccups and shit like this from time to time. And so maybe it would help for me to distribute more power backups throughout the house. Those are also expensive. So basically what I'm saying is all of the problems can be solved with money. Just you need to give it to me. That's the way it works. Do you want to pick a couple that you like and answer them, and then we'll get back to calls here?
Sure. One of the questions was, can you recommend a vibe more intense than the magic wand? If you're looking for some, I know, yeah. If you're looking for like external stimulation, I'm sure there are ways that you can look at the power that each tool has. I'm not great with like electronics in that sense, so I'm not sure like what that measurement would be. However, maybe it would be worth exploring like different types of functions, like something that has, I should have taken out my little box of tricks that I have of all of the toys that I have. Maybe something that has like a sucking function might be good, or actually there's one here. This one is one of my favorites. It's a Alyssa toy, and it has 2 sides. So this is internal and this is external, and they, the buttons like they vibrate each one separately. So you can choose the strength of both. And this is like one of the best things that I've ever owned in my life. It's incredible. 10 out of 10. So I would try something like this. Or something that has like this sort of like shape in the front there, because then it'll be a little bit more central to the head of the clitoris, perhaps.
Do you need your 3D printed clitoris on the I'm just giving you the option. Did you already have it?
It's always here.
That's right.
But it's also important to realize that the clitoris extends. This is just the head. This is just, where's my pillow? This little piece is just the piece that you see here below the hood, is literally just this. And this whole structure is full of thousands of nerve endings that sit on the sides of the labia. And so there are so many other places where you can experience pleasure that are not central to this one location. That's just the portion that's exposed. So I would encourage you to try different shapes and different functions in toys, along with seeing if you could just find one that has like a there's like a measurement for like the
Intensity.
Yeah, but I can't remember it offhand.
I dare anyone after the answering of that question to really try to make the case that this isn't the greatest channel on all of YouTube. I dare you. I'll fucking smoke you. Anyway, let's jump back into calls. I think we'll run through these and then move on to the super chat portion of the show and still try and keep everything reasonably timely. We know that things have gotten thrown off. I'm frustrated, mad. I'm, be calling my internet fucking provider later. I'm that person. I do call. I can Karen out a bit. Though in this case, I feel it's justified. We're talking to Crafty in Massachusetts. Crafty, you are on the line. I don't hear Crafty. Crafty, do you hear me? Hello? I don't know if this is part of an extension of the issues we were having before. I don't think so. Let me see. Maybe I just need to unplug and replug this in. Crafty.
I can hear you.
There we go.
I'm gonna keep
I hear you
singing.
now. I hear
can
you.
Hear me? Oh, you can hear me
I
now?
hear your songs.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I do the same exact thing, by the way. The singing on the phone when people are
you
like,
just sing until they can hear you.
Tell me when the mute is over. That's right. Go ahead, Crafty.
It's a useful trick. Yeah. Real quick, before I get to my question, right before the chaos, I had heard about the concept Alyssa was talking about from Come As You Are, The Surprising New Science That Will Transform Your Sex Life by Dr. Emily Nagoski.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's a book I would highly recommend to anybody. And I'm a layman, so that is one that I thoroughly enjoyed.
It's so great. I have read that book so many times. It's upstairs in my office because I'm constantly flipping through it. And if you haven't seen, she also has a workbook that goes along with it, and it's so interesting, and it's like sort of follows the way that she describes working through like that whole dual control model. It's great. So if you don't have the workbook, you should get the workbook too. It's great.
I have not. I will totally check that out. Thank you. Basically, I am an adult illustrator. I do all my business online for the most part. Very few in-person commissions, but I do work that spans several communities, especially the furry community. I've bumped into purity culture there, as well as in those other communities I'm a part of, superheroes and fantasy and that kind of thing. And I've also encountered it in my personal life with regards to my sister, who's a very, very open, very kink positive, very liberal artist herself, but specifically, and I will not talk with her about this because she just doesn't want to hear it, and I only want to have that conversation with enthusiastic consent. But I bump into the wall of disgust when I talk about how I'm an adult artist. And I was just wondering if maybe you had some tips for overcoming that initial disgust. I'm assuming part of it comes from, you draw porn? Well, there must be non-consensual stuff in it. There must be violence. There must be an inherent denigration of women or people of color or racism or something like that. There just has to be some sort of inherently objectionable aspect to it. And how can I talk to them about how that's actually not the case? I'm a very respectful artist, and that those things aren't actually a part of my work without pushing into that conversation.
I think the first thing that I thought of is first of all, your job sounds very cool. And I would encourage you to like drop your socials or something somewhere because it seems really cool and I want to see it. So I would just, the first thing I thought was some of the most beautiful and iconic pieces of art are nude. And so it's interesting. I literally have someone behind me. But some of the most iconic pieces of work are nude. And so I think that would be kind of my first line of defense for people who sort of like scoff at it, be like, have you ever heard of the David, perhaps? Like Venus, like that beautiful painting of Venus. Like she's nude in there as well. And I think like your biggest piece of arsenal is that it is a consensual work that you're doing. I can't imagine, you're so like positive in the way that you speak that I can't imagine that the way that you're having these conversations would be anything less than that. So I feel like I feel like it's important to sort of like manage the expectation there, because there are people who are going to have that like visceral reaction no matter what. And for you, you know what your work means. You know that you're creating something that is positive and consensual and fun. And I think that, you know, you can sort of take some pride in that. There are going to be people where there's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can say that's going to change their mind, really. And even like for me, in my daily life now, I've had to have these conversations with like even like my grandma, who's like 90 and an Italian immigrant, and explain to her what I'm doing. I'm sorry. And one of the ways that I think gets my point across the best way is to explain that a lot of what we do is creating a safe space for people to play and enjoy and be brave and enjoy these things that like they might be criticized for publicly. You're giving them a safe space to explore and like really indulge in that. And that's really special. And even from like the educational aspect of it, like you're creating normalcy around something that is very normal. And so, so I would almost approach it. I think sometimes it comes with a little bit of like your tone. Like if you're telling people I'm an adult artist, and you don't leave, if you give them that little bit of like, yeah, I'm an adult artist, and you sort of give them the space, I think they'll lean into being like, yuck. But if you say it in a way where you're like, I am providing this really amazing, consensual, fun service to people who are commissioning it, or, you know, maybe you're just creating it for people to like purchase on their own. I think it's going to come down to the tone and also adjusting expectations of like, there are some people who are just not going to like it no matter what. And that's fine. They're not your people. But I'm your people.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's excellent. And that is specifically the part of it. Well, I'm glad you're on my team. That is specifically the aspect that I am most proud of, like the thing that kind of keeps me going in doing adult art. Not just because I enjoy it in general, but because there's so many people I find have trouble talking about such things until they talk to me. And then they literally say things like, I'm having a lot of fun going, and I don't normally talk openly about my kinks or my desires, but I'm enjoying doing that with you in this moment, and I can't wait to throw my money at you for some art about this thing. So that's actually a really good angle I hadn't thought of.
Yeah, I would lead with that, because for people who don't understand, like one of the things that's so funny to me about the people who are so judgmental is that they are just at the root of it. They are in layers and layers and layers and layers of shame. So it's their own shit. It's not your shit. It's theirs. And they can't accept it enough because we have built this whole shame spiral around sexuality, and you in your job are actively dismantling that for people. And so even if that person in that conversation is not super open or willing to accept that what you're doing is normal and empowering, even though it is, and we know that it is, you being there, you existing is enough to start to chip away at that for them. And if that doesn't happen, and their response is to like toughen up those walls and continue to think that what you're doing or what we're doing is gross and weird and whatever, there's nothing that we can do for them. There's nothing. But what you're doing is really important, and I would lead with that foot. You're creating a safe space for people to explore and play and enjoy something that's just fun, good fun. That's really all that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. That is a very good answer, and thank you both for everything you do.
Thanks, Crafty.
Oh, thanks, Crafty.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Awesome. Don't forget, there are more shows on the line this week. Tomorrow, you have The Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty, who will be joined by Neil 604 Atheist. And then this Thursday, I believe, I guess I could double check to confirm, the Transatlantic Call-In show, I believe, is going to be hosted by Arden and Katy. And I think they're doing their dressing up as the queen and a peasant thing that they had to do because of a competition they had on the show. I think that's what's going down. It probably needs some confirming, but pretty sure. So that's, and then we'll take Friday and Saturday off, and I'll be back on Sunday with Matt Dillahunty on the Sunday show. Next Monday is Aron Ra on Skeptalk, and then back here again on HOSTility with Dominic Syracuse, the director of cognitive behavioral theater. All right, next call, I think. You ready for more? Are we?
I'm ready.
We're good? We got time?
Yeah.
We're talking to Whisper in Utah. Whisper in Utah, you are on the line. Whisper, are you whispering? Whisper.
It seems like maybe there's like a delay.
We had Crafty on. I had to unplug and plug, so I know it's not the call-in system this time. But it could be that Whisper maybe put down the phone or is waiting for YouTube to alert them. They're maybe watching the show separate. That happens kind of often. So Whisper, we're going to return you to the queue and try again here in a few minutes with you. But in the meantime, we'll try and talk to Xavier in Miami, Florida. Xavier in Miami, you are on the line. How are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
You are on the line. What would you like to ask Alyssa?
Hey, so from obviously an early age, you realize very quickly you're a sexual being. And then the church turns that on you and basically, okay, therefore, because you have lusts, and Jesus in the Bible, whether Jesus said it or Matthew put it on Jesus's lips, it says, if you look upon a woman to lust after her, you commit adultery in your heart. So basically, just for being sexual, you deserve to go to hell and burn forever. So that's how powerful that indoctrination is. My question is, how can you get rid of that from your psyche? Like, I know why it's not true. You know, I can formulate why the doctrine of hell isn't even biblical, or rather there's contradictory views, but my body still feels like it's real. How do you get rid of that?
Yeah. First of all, that's a great question. And I love that you have so much context there into like the exact language and verbiage that's used. It's really kind of wild when you really dive into like the actual language that's used in the Bible to describe what those experiences are like. I think the first portion of dismantling all of that is really the sexual relationship that you have with yourself. And so what I would recommend is, if you are someone who is okay with self-touch, there's some people who are not, like, so any sort of masturbation or any touching in genital areas of your own, I would encourage you to sort of take a meditative approach. And I know that this is going to sound a little bit unorthodox and kind of strange, but one of the things that we have taught when I was an assistant to a sex coach last year was vulva hugging. And you can do a similar thing. My boss used to call it a cock cuddle, but it's a similar idea. The purpose is to help to rewire the neurological connection between the tissues in your genital area and what your brain is receiving. So we have all of these neurons that are firing back and forth between these two areas. And if you have wired any sort of self-touch or exploring of that area to be something that triggers like shame for you or triggers any sort of like negative feelings, there are ways that you can start to unravel that by taking this, it's called the somatic approach. So what I would recommend that you do is place a hand even just on top of the genital area. You can cradle the genital area and really sit with it and think about what sexuality means to you. Really, it's a way to intimately connect with yourself. It's a way to intimately connect with others. And I would take that approach first. When you're dismantling years and years and years of indoctrination, it makes most sense, I think, to go the route of like an ongoing like therapy system, so that there's going to be little battles you're going to face along the way. And so I think having the support of someone who's been with you for an extended period of time is really helpful. But if you're troubleshooting on your own, I would first look at, where do I feel this tension in my life? Okay, maybe it's with your self-touch, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's with a partner. If you're going to have sex with somebody and it's not for procreation, ways that you can really sink into those moments will come down to being really mindful, being really in the moment, and doing that in whatever way that you possibly can. Maybe that means foreplay for an hour and not actually having sex, and just to build that intimacy and build the intimacy in a physical, touching way. Because intimacy comes in a lot of different forms, and the Bible seems to be okay in all these other forms of intimacy, but there's something about the physical intimacy that is where we draw the line. So yeah, I would recommend more meditative self-touch practices, and you can even find somatic practitioners in your area that can help you guide through that process. And that's a really great first step, along with a therapist who is either a sex therapist or someone who specializes in religious trauma.
That was wonderful. I hope my insurance
Good,
takes
I'm
it.
glad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Sometimes I answer questions and I'm like, I don't even know if that was helpful. So I'm glad that it is.
I thought it was all tremendous information. That everything for you, Xavier? Anything before we let you go?
Yeah, that's the physiological. That should do the trick. I guess taking that trauma, I guess you said religious trauma. Take that, heal from the religious trauma, take it out of your body. Hopefully it's out of my body and also out of my mind. I guess you could work with like someone to critique the doctrine itself, but also address the physiological aspect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Xavier. All right. We've got one more, and then we're going to be headed to the super chat section. So remember, if you'd like to get a question in, you'd like to support the channel, you want to see more shows like this, you want to see Alyssa return and maybe take over just every show because she is such a superstar, and I'm down for it. Great way to support the show. You can also become a channel member. And if you want to see shows on the line become a podcast in the future, we're working on all of that right now. That will almost entirely be funded by Patreon, because those of you who aren't in the production world don't know that podcasts basically just lose money until they succeed enough to pay for themselves, and they can be just an absolute hole in the ground that you throw your cash into. I've done it a few times. Not my favorite, but some people do love them. They love podcasting. Speaking of one person who loves podcasting, Alyssa, who has a podcast, and you can find the links to Alyssa's podcast in the description, as well as to Alyssa's Instagram. Highly, highly recommend both. You should be following. All right.
Yay. The first episode of my podcast is coming out a week from today. It's going to be great.
Brilliant.
And then it'll be weekly after that.
That
So,
sounds amazing.
Yay.
That sounds awesome. Any exciting guests?
Well, the first episode, and this is a sneak peek, no one knows this yet, is going to be my closest friends from my season of the show. And so we talk about our worst dates. We talk about like some sexual experiences and stuff like that. So, and like best dating advice we've ever gotten, that sort of a thing. And then I've also interviewed like, I think it's like between 8 and 10 people who work in the sex industry. So some of them are porn stars, some of them are cam girls. And those interviews were incredible, and I can't wait for people to hear them.
I'm excited about that. We've talked about that a little bit in the past, and yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Very cool, very cool. Awesome. Well, let's take our last call of the evening, which is from Dorian. Actually, let me have also, apparently I have the name wrong. I gotta fix that. Oh, the call changed since I updated it. Would you say I'm making promos and stuff, so I'm gonna have you do it. Will you just say Dorian in New Mexico, you're on the line?
Sure. Now?
Go for it. Yeah.
Did I say it? Okay.
Yeah.
Dorian from New Mexico, you are on the line.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Dorian.
Hi.
Hello. What did you want to ask, Dorian?
So I wanted to ask a question with some intersectionality to it.
Okay.
So my partner and I are both trans. We both have religious trauma. We're both survivors. I am sex neutral, asexual, and my partner vacillates between sex repulsed and hypersexual. I was hoping for some just general advice on how to date that.
There's a lot of factors at play. So I would say in any way that you can find more regular support, like in therapy or a group or counseling, that's always helpful. And the first thing that comes to mind, and the reason that I recommend that, is because I think in even regular, schmegular, degular, cisgender, boring relationships, no trauma, everyone should have a support system to talk about things that might be heavy for every day for a partner. And when you have all of these other things that are going on, that especially with things like trauma, things that like you're going to be constantly unpacking, I think it's important to have other support systems that are not your partner, so that when it comes down to the relationship that you have with your partner, you're able to focus on the intimacy that you share. And when I say the word intimacy, I don't mean sex. I mean intimacy, like there is intimacy in someone making dinner and the other person saying, I'm going to do the dishes, you go relax. There's intimacy in playing with somebody's hair. There's intimacy in being in the shower and noticing that the shampoo is out and being like, oh, I'm just going to go grab it. Those sort of things. So I would also encourage you to find ways that you two experience pleasure together that have nothing to do with sexuality, and make those a priority. So I've seen, like, it's sort of silly because I see all these like date ideas on TikTok, but they're so great. Like there's a couple that does, they have like a jar of date ideas, and one person every week will pick out a date idea from there. You can also alternate, like one person is going to pick the date this week, and then the next person is going to pick the date next week. You can alternate. We're going to do an outside date this week, and next week we're going to do an inside date, and creating like these exciting situations and opportunities for intimacy in your everyday life will be really helpful tools. Another tool that I use a lot in all of my personal relationships, it's like something that a therapist taught me years and years ago, and I still implement it in all of my relationships now, is having a weekly tune-up. And this is a good way to resolve conflicts and talk about things that might make you feel a little icky without being like, can we have a talk? Because the second that you say, can we have a talk? It's like immediate IBS, immediate diarrhea. I don't want anything to do with that. No. Especially if it's, can we have a talk? Okay, we'll talk about it later. No, we need to talk about it right now because I can't handle it. So I always recommend doing something like a regular tune-up cycle so that you are in communication with each other and make these tune-ups a place where you agree that the conversations that you're having are, you're coming to the table with love for each other, with the wanting and willing to understand each other, and that this is not a place for judgment. This is, I'm going to air this out with you so that we can strengthen what we have. And I think when you create an environment where that is the goal, no matter what, it's very hard to leave those situations in conflict. So I think for your relationship, the best thing that you can do is sort of insulate it as much as you can. Build these systems in of support within your relationship, support outside of your relationship. If you feel like you struggle to find like date opportunities, build that in as well. If you're like homebody, like Jimmy and I talk all the time how we're homebodies. I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing it now. If you're a homebody, that's also fine, and you're not like a date person, fine. But building in those systems with the intention of creating a strong foundation, strong communication, because that's what's going to lead you through any challenges that you face, because you're going to have a lot to navigate as your relationship develops. I hope I answered your question, but if I didn't, let me know.
Yeah, that does give me a little bit more to think about than where we were already. Both of us are already doing quite a bit of it, but there's some areas that I think can be improved on as well.
I was going to add, even if you already have a therapist and stuff locked up, for other people who might be listening, check out seculartherapy.org. It's specifically for people recovering from religious-based trauma. It was started by Dr. Daryl Ray, who also has a high focus as a doctor on like sexuality, and so specific to all of these things that sort of intersect between trauma, religion, sexual shaming, and all of that. Great resource for people who are looking for the right place to get the counseling.
And Dorian, if you're looking for other people who are, oh my God, these dogs are crazy. I'm so sorry if you can hear them. But if you're looking for other people who are coaches who have more experience in some of the areas that you described, there is like one practitioner that I have in mind specifically that I think you would really enjoy, and would be able to like open up more of those conversations, because for a lot of what you're describing, like I don't have anecdotal experience with, and I don't have specialized training in. So I can help you find resources for people who do. And even if you don't want to like reach out to them, surrounding yourself with those resources, like whether you're following them on socials or if you like keep up with a newsletter, whatever it is, you might find little gems in their content that help you sort of move the process along and figure out like where the pain points are, so you can course correct as well. So if you want, my Instagram is in the description. DM me if you have Instagram, or my email is also attached to my Instagram, so you can send me an email too, and I'll send you more resources and people who have more like of a depth of knowledge there.
I will probably do that. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Dorian.
Thank you, Dorian.
Excellent. That concludes the call-in portion. We now move on to the super chat portion. Something that we're going to do a little bit differently is, yes, I'm going to put them up on the screen. However, when we had to do our little network reset earlier, a couple of them got shaved off out of my system as far as being able to put them on the screen. So I'm just going to read them out loud. The first one will sound like I'm making it up, but I'm not. This is back when you introduced yourself and said you were a fangirl. Nilly Welson had contributed and said, "We are all Jimmy fangirls. Congrats on 2 new shows, 2 nights in a row. Hashtag take my theoretical dollars." And that's it's alleged dollars. I call Canadian dollars alleged dollars. But you were close. Theoretical dollars, alleged dollars, all of that. And then the Logical Larynx had said, "Quick, everyone said $5 to the buffering fairy so we can move things along." That when all of that network trouble was going on, which was
amazing.
Yeah, unfortunate and unpleasant. But now we'll move to the actual super chat window. Ilya had said hello to everybody at the beginning. I'd used that as a thing to a test one. But we'll start with. Oh, good. It isn't. Hang on. That part isn't fixed apparently. Should be maybe now. There we go. Alyssa Nguyen says, "I hope you weren't waxing your modem trying to make it go faster." No, I indeed was not. By the way, everyone, there aren't very many super chats. So if you'd like this show to continue, you want the conversations to continue, get those super chats of $5 or more in now. Because that's, y'all really control how long the show goes. And I think we've only got like 5 or 6 of these. By how many of those? And again, it supports the channel and all that stuff. All the other ways to support the channel found in the description. Let's see. Next one is from the Logical Larynx. "Jimmy, would you consider sharing an Amazon wish list for the line? Be happy to buy some things for you guys on the upcoming non-denominational winter gift party." Non-denominational. I knew that war on Christmas was happening. It's confirmed, you atheist. Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll do something like that because we've definitely got a lot of gear and stuff that needs upkeeping and upgrading and changing and stuff. So we'll do that. Some of the stuff, it's going to be like, we need to add a new soundboard for producers. I doubt a lot of people are going to spend $700 on our Amazon wish list, but that's how much the soundboard is. So, but yeah, we'll see what we can figure out there. I know. Every time we need new one of these, this is a $400 microphone. Ridiculous. I know. That's how I feel. Ridiculous. Liz Chris sent $10, but no note on it. We only have 3 more. Looks like it's I got to imagine there are questions out there. You want to throw on a $5 super chat where this is going to be over real quick. That's what it's looking like. From Jeff G. Loving this conversation. Keep it up. Would love many more discussions like this in the future. Yeah, the hard part about having a superstar like Alyssa on is that we've already said that this show is going to be rotating, and yet I'm ready to just have you on every night. Just
I'm willing to come back anytime.
Every time. No, I'm kidding.
Every time.
I do. You're just phenomenal. It was such a great show, and your insights are so wonderful, and I couldn't be happier with the quality of the content. And I'm not just saying that. There are people who've been on this channel that I'm like, never again. You sucked at this.
Yeah.
I didn't say it to their faces or anything, but people can do math. No, there's also a lot of people who just haven't been on in a long time. And now people are going to be like, oh, wait, so-and-so who hasn't been on? Does it mean them? And you'll never figure out who, except for the ones that are obvious. But Alyssa will be back. I insist.
Yes.
I utterly insist. So that was too forceful. Just waiting for this thing to update here. But we'll have another one from Alyssa Nguyen says, is there a combination more NSFW than OSHA times Rule 34? I don't know that I get it. Because isn't OSHA like... What is OSHA? Isn't OSHA
is like
the food people?
It's like... OSHA is like, I remember OSHA from when I worked retail, and it was like the people that made sure that there were rules like in fire codes and things.
Right. Safety stuff. Yeah. Things
like
where
safety stuff.
You got to have enough fire extinguishers. What kind of porn are you looking at, Alyssa? My God. How do you combine fire extinguishers? I know Rule 34.
if it exists, there is porn of it.
Right.
What is Rule 34?
Yeah, it's an old reference to an old 4chan thing.
Oh.
Right. It's like
I
porn
see.
you don't expect to exist, but it's like, boy, I wonder if
Right.
anybody's ever made a Jigglypuff fucking a Scooby-Doo. And it's like, yes,
Right.
if you've thought it, it's already exists as porn. That's how it goes. Let's see. We've got $5 from Rocky Rhino 22. Thought I was straight until I was 27, then started wondering if I'm bi gay. Scared to experiment, but also not sure if I'm living in denial. Any tips? I came out at a roughly similar time, maybe like a year older than you were when you did. I didn't really think I was straight, though. I just was content living straight and saying straight because I am so fond of women that it wasn't like I could suppress the other side of my sexuality, sides really of my sexuality pretty easily. But you know, scared to experiment, also not sure if I'm living in denial. Whatever part you're scared of, and I mean physical part, I'd get a toy that resembles it and start there.
Yes. And I also feel like, and I'm actually curious if you have other advice too, because you have had to navigate this yourself. But I feel like what I always think would help is getting on like Tinder or Hinge, one of the dating apps where your profile isn't, I think Hinge does this. You have an option where your profile isn't being shown to everyone. It's only being shown to the people that you chose.
Yeah.
So you have a minimal risk of people that you don't want to know finding out. You can even change your location to be somewhere else. And when you start having conversations with people and just seeing how it goes, I think people are a lot kinder than you think that they would be in that circumstance. And if you just say like, I'm experimenting and I just want to like talk to someone and like get to know you and whatever, that might be a way to like kind of dip a toe in the water without feeling like you're outing yourself right away. But Jimmy, what was your experience like?
I mean, it's still an ongoing experience. I did learn that as I was trying to ease into it, installing Grindr in my experience was a mistake. It is very aggressive. At least that was what happened. Yeah. So yeah, you definitely want to take your time. But yeah, I mean, I think part of addressing people who are often afraid to experiment with other people are often also afraid to experiment with themselves. And so I'd say work on self-experimentation first and go from there.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I wonder where you came down. Then started, thought I was straight until 27, then started wondering if I'm bi gay. Scared to experiment, but also not sure if I'm living in denial. Any tips? I'm wondering does this mean you still are wondering if you're bi or gay? Or there's so much information. What a story there probably is here that we're missing out. But porn, honestly, too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone's pro porn, but go look at the porn that you think you might be into and see how you feel about it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think like there's nothing wrong with experimenting. I think people are a lot more kind if you're open with them than you're expecting them to be. So like if you feel like you're in a safe space where you can try and plan a date or something or drinks with somebody, I would give that a shot and just be open with them and let them know that this is new for you. And so you're kind of exploring and you want to take things slow and just see how you feel.
$10 from Nightfire. Love the new shows. Any advice for a trans non-binary person that's experiencing lower sex drive after starting HRT? The best advice we can give you is, because both of us are cis, unless Alyssa has specific training here, is to call the Transatlantic Call-In show this Thursday and ask that very same question, as that show is hosted by two trans people and probably have direct experience to be able to understand that. So it's going to be Arden and Katy this week. I know with HRT that it can go all over the place. Some people's sex drive goes to 1,000 and then some go to 0. And it'll all depend on what your goals are too. When you say lower sex drive, is this something you're lamenting? Do you wish it would come back more? And in a lot of cases, that's going to require you to consult with the physician that's monitoring your HRT. But Don't take it from us sisses. Call our trans hosts this Thursday on the Transatlantic Call-In Show on this very same channel. Earlier in the day, it's at 2 p.m. CST, Central Time Zone. Every Thursday, we have that show. And I know we're working on getting some more non-binary guest hosts in the near future, too, if you specifically want to speak to them. Anything you'd like to add?
The only other thing I can think of is that I know that that hormone replacement therapy takes time to adjust. So if you just started it, like patience is going to be your best friend, and just giving yourself a little time and space. But beyond that, I would say definitely tune in to hear from people who've actually experienced that before. Most of my training is kind of boring. It's just vaginas. So
you say kind of boring, and then you have the most like extravagant vagina pillow that you bring into frame. It's so boring.
I know vaginas aren't boring, but yeah, I don't know that I have enough to like really elaborate more than that. But
this channel has
later this week you will.
That's right.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. Whoops. Did I miss that? Okay, here we go. Sham Tactics says black and white sweaters, twinsies. You're apparently
twinsies.
I love the diamond pattern too. We used to call it a Cosby sweater, but now we don't call it that anymore. That is not what is anymore. It's a totally different sweater, unassociated with any fictional TV doctors.
Yes.
Kathleen Moncrief says, I can't think of a question, but here is some alleged support. Right, Canadian dollars. Thank you for that alleged support from an alleged fan of your alleged show. Well, this is not a Canadian show, so this show's real. But alleged fan, alleged support. I get it. Also, please don't stop the jokes about alleged dollars. They literally make me laugh out loud. Yeah, I've had these issues before where I go too hard on some other country. I had people actually sending me email and comments because I always joke that like it's impossible to survive in Australia, that everything in Australia is just trying to kill you. And it apparently offended some Australians. So then I did it more.
Oh my God.
That's right. That's right. I'm sorry. I don't,
a menace. You're a menace.
I don't react to white people trying to guilt me about their white country and all their spiders, which are trying to murder you. You cannot, just don't lie. Anyway, Logical Larynx says, as a repressed Catholic, by the way, this may be the last super chat. So any of you who are like, oh, I just hope the show keeps going, you got to quickly hit that button and throw your question in, throw your chat in if you're wanting to extend it any further. Otherwise, this is the last one. I'm taking a long time to say this is the last one to give you the opportunity. Logical Larynx says, as a repressed Catholic, TM, trademarked, I wonder if you guys have any advice for me to get a bit more comfortable talking about this stuff. I feel like it takes practice. It just takes time, and it's sort of like immersion therapy. You have to do it and then realize you didn't die. And then next time you're less afraid of dying when you talk about it.
Yes. And say all of the words. Like people get very uncomfortable using words like vagina, vulva, penis, whatever. Yeah. Say those words in different tones, and it sort of makes it funny and like disarms the actual like meaning of the word. So like say it conversationally. Just be like penis, vagina. Yes.
At anus. Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner this week, as Christmas dinner's coming up, just sit at the table and be like, hello, everybody, anus.
Yes.
I'd like to, yeah, exactly. I think that's great.
And then you could say it like you're joking, and it's sort of like a silly exercise, but it really does help. And then say it really loud and say it really quiet, and that helps to just like loosen up those words in your mouth and in your brain. Like it just helps those words feel a little bit more comfortable. But the rest of it is going to be practice, and also knowing that the more that you talk about all of this stuff, the easier every part of it will get, and the more fun that every part of it will get. So it is well worth the effort.
Yeah. There's an old, I actually haven't watched that much King of the Hill, but there's a clip that went somewhat viral of, I want to say her name might be Peggy, the mother character, saying into a mirror, she's just trying to be able to say penis. So she starts by saying happiness. And so she's just looking in the happiness, happiness, penis,
That's
penis, vagina, just screams it.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
Too good. Too good. Well, everyone, what a successful, despite internet issues notwithstanding, first episode of HOSTility. I could not be more chuffed to have been joined by just a wonderful, delightsome light of a person. You fill my life with brightness. I should have also mentioned, I too am a fangirl of Alyssa. This is a mutual fangirlship, truly. And I just think your insight was wonderful. I'll be more than excited to have you back in the future when we can line that up, because I just thought this was great. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Oh my God, I had so much fun. My cheeks hurt from smiling.
Last question of the night for you to solve with all of your insight. Why am I so alone? No, I'm kidding. I just thought I'd get deep and weird. It's like,
Shimmy, please.
how does somebody have sex? That would just been a hilarious one to end on. But we'll save it for the beginning of the next time that you're here.
Perfect.
Do you want to tell people where to find you, plug something, whatever you want? The last words are yours.
Yes, so follow me on my Instagram, which is Alyssa Lube, LJUB, and it's linked in the description below. I'm always posting sex ed content there, and I'm always asking for content ideas. So if there's a question that you wanted answered and you didn't feel like we got to it today, I will come back on the show, but you can also ask me on Instagram. And I am starting my podcast next week. Woohoo! So that show is going to be called Alyssa Explains It All. It's linked below. It'll be available where all podcasts are available. And if you ever have suggestions of who we should have on the podcast aside from Jimmy, because I'm getting him on, absolutely, then let me know.
I'm going to cry.
Please. I'd be so excited. I know.
I'm excited.
It's a lot.
I am.
Yep. So, yeah, I think those are all of my things.
Links are in the description. Everyone, have a good damn night. I don't have we need a sign off. This has been HOSTility.
We do.
I hope it wasn't excessively hostile. I'll work on it. We'll get a whiteboard out and workshop this shit, because that was terrible. Good night, everyone.